Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something maybe a bit unexpected, the recent G7 summit up in Canada. And you normally expect these things to show, united front. But we've got some leaked info suggesting, well, quite a bit of disagreement, actually, especially on how to handle Iran.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This summit was supposed to be about projecting strength, right? But instead, it seems like it's exposed some real divisions. And the source here, it's a report from Zencir Mentor based on leaks from inside the talks. It paints a picture of leaders really genuinely struggling to agree on Iran.
Okay, so what's the core issue? What's the actual sticking point here? It sounds like two pretty different approaches clashing.
That's exactly it. So based on these leaks, you've got one side, mainly the US and the UK, pushing really hard for what they're calling maximum pressure. Think really intense economic pain. They're talking about crippling economic sanctions, specifically going after Iran's oil exports and financial sector.
Crippling sanctions.
Yeah. And their thinking, reportedly, is that only severe economic pain will actually make Iran change course. They feel like, diplomacy without leverage, without that economic hammer, basically, is just bound to fail.
Right, so hit them hard economically, force them to the table seriously. That's the idea. What's the counter-argument then?
Well, the other key players, France and Germany, they're urging something different, a more cautious and diplomatic path, is how the leaks put it. They've got some big concerns. They worry that going too harsh with sanctions could actually be counterproductive.
Counterproductive how?
Well, a few things. First, the potential for immense suffering for ordinary Iranian citizens, hurting the population without necessarily changing the government's mind, and also maybe destroying any remaining channels for communication and negotiation, basically slamming the door shut. And crucially, they're worried it might provoke an even more aggressive response from Iran, maybe even escalating things towards a full-scale regional war.
A regional war? Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty stark difference.
Definitely. So France and Germany, they want sanctions, sure, but paired with a clear and credible diplomatic off-ramp, like show Iran a way out, an incentive to de-escalate.
Maximum pressure versus careful diplomacy with an escape hatch. That really spells out the tension.
Yeah.
So what happens when these major economies just can't agree on something so fundamental? I mean, the G7's influence comes from unity, right?
Precisely. Their clout on the world stage hinges on presenting a united front. When there's this kind of public disagreement, it sends a pretty clear signal of disunity and indecision. And that message goes out to everyone. Global adversaries think Russia and China, they see that. And importantly, Iran itself sees it. They might look at these visible cracks and see it as an opportunity to exploit.
Yeah, I can see that. And the leaks themselves. The fact that these tense behind-the-scenes negotiations are getting out, that feels significant, not just like random gossip.
Oh, absolutely not random. In this kind of high-level diplomacy, leaks often signal deep frustration somewhere in the room. Sometimes it's even a tactic, a way to rally public support for one side's argument, or maybe put pressure on opponents by taking the fight public, to the court of public opinion.
Right, trying to win the argument outside the negotiating room. So the summit's ending. There must be huge pressure to come up with something, anything, even if it's weak.
Huge pressure. So the best case scenario, according to the source material, might be just a watered-down joint statement, a communique using really vague language everyone can sort of nod along to, even if it doesn't mean much, just avoiding the look of total failure.
And the worst case?
The worst case, which the leaks suggest is becoming increasingly possible, is that the summit ends without any consensus on Iran at all, just nothing.
Wow. And if they can't even agree on a vague statement, what then?
Well, that's a significant blow to the G7's credibility, especially on a major security issue like this. It probably means a fractured Western response. You might see different countries going off and doing their own thing, maybe even working against each other. And that kind of chaos could easily further destabilize what's already a really tense region.
Okay, so let's bring it back to you, the listener. Why should this G7 disagreement matter to you? Well, because whether these powerful countries are unified or divided on big security threats like Iran, it directly impacts global stability. It shapes how other countries, friends and foes, react.
Yeah, it really sets the tone for how international crises get managed. or mismanage.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the main takeaway from these G7 leaks isn't harmony. It's some pretty clear cracks in how the Western alliance wants to approach Iran. That clash between maximum pressure and cautious diplomacy is real.
And the potential results range from a sort of flimsy agreement that papers over the cracks to maybe no agreement at all, which carries its own big risks.
So here's something to think about. If there's this much public disagreement on a really immediate, pressing security challenge like Iran, what does that tell us about the alliance's ability to handle other big global crises down the road? Maybe ones that are less urgent today, but just as complex. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?